Do I have a story and some advice for you? Hey guys, I just hit a milestone that I've never hit before. I got fired for the first time. I have never been fired in my life. I've had a handful of jobs since I was, I don't know, probably 17, Taco Bell, and I went into nursing school, and then it's all been nursing jobs since then. And I've always had a really good rapport with my bosses and coworkers. It's always been, so sorry to leave, it's just time to go on to the next step. But not this time. So I worked at my state job, my forensic psychiatry job, Thursday night. And I was on the same unit that I've been on the last couple shifts because they don't have any of their own staff, or at least not trained at this point. Or they don't have a lot of their own, so they don't have their own RNs. I didn't need quotes. They don't have their own RNs trained on nights yet. They cycle through employees for one reason or another. So I was in charge on this unit that I've been on. I worked with my favorite LPN, and we actually had good staffing because there was maybe some high acuity going on. So it was not a bad shift, but because I was in charge and we had people coming and going at different hours, like people coming and going at 3 a.m., I didn't have a whole lot of downtime. We had a 1-to-1 patient, and I put myself on some safety checks. I did an hour of safety checks. I did 2 hours of 1-to-1, split up throughout my shift. I finished up my charting, and I finished up my education. So I had all of my education done completely. So I was feeling pretty good. Charting looks good. Education is done, which is more than I could say for my ICU job sometimes. There are some things I need to sign up for. The unit is pretty clean. The nurse's station is pretty clean. We have to check the fire extinguishers every twice a shift. You're supposed to. And I do. Specifically, I do. Because it will not be on me to find out in an emergency that it was never checked and is not full. So we had this decent shift, and at the end of it, at around 6:50 in the morning, I got a call from the supervisor, and she said, "Hey, so-and-so in HR would like to talk to you this morning, so just go ahead and go to the conference room and chat with her before you leave." Okay, I'll do that. Now, I don't know these people very well, so when I think of HR, I think of a number of things. Maybe something needed updated for my address or phone number. They didn't have this information, or I don't know. I don't get scared when it comes to talking to people because I'm pretty confident in my work. So it's not like, ooh, I'm in trouble. But there was a little bit of that jokingly, like, ooh, you have to talk to so-and-so after your shift. So I went into the office. There were 2 people in there. I really don't know who the one was. They never introduced themselves. Probably someone high up. I'm sure I should have known who they were, but there's been some changes in administration, retirements, and other things. So I don't know. But they sat me down. They said, "Hey, good morning. How are you?" I'd never met the HR lady before. She's like, "I don't think we've met. I'm so-and-so. Nice to finally meet you." And I said, "Yeah, it's great to meet you too. I work midnight shift. I hardly get a chance to meet anybody." And then the person behind the desk started talking, and they said, "Someone came to us and let us know that you created a YouTube video where you talked about doing homework and reading a book on shift." And I said, "Yes, I do. I do some YouTube videos. I am in school right now, and I am documenting the process." And I mentioned that I don't use the company name. And they said, "Yep, we're aware that you call it the state job." And I said, "Yes, I do." And they said, "But the idea is that you're doing homework on company time, and that is against our policy. So here is your letter of termination." Okay. I knew once they said YouTube video that we probably weren't going to go in a great direction. I don't want to say people don't like YouTube. Healthcare doesn't like YouTube, even though we need to be going in the other direction. We need to open up the lines of communication about what's happening in healthcare in general. Patients can utilize it as, sharing their stories, and healthcare professionals can utilize it to open things up. Secrets aren't good for anybody. We are finding that out in life in general, in our government. Staying secretive, who does that benefit? I don't have secrets. I'm going to tell you about my jobs. So I knew we weren't going to go in a good direction. And they said, "Okay, yep, here's your letter of termination." I said, "Okay." And then the HR person said, "Here's the retirement packet so you can go through. I know you've been paying into it. Here's how you can access W-2s for this year so you can get those next tax season, and here's this. I said, okay, great, thank you. She said, I'll go ahead and take your badge now. I said, all right, here's my badge. Here's my little entry into the building. When I was explaining that I was documenting my process as a student, I explained that I can understand. I said, I understand how you wouldn't appreciate homework being done on your time, but I don't completely understand the mention of reading on your time. I've seen a lot of nurses read on the units, and I honestly thought it was acceptable. We play games with the patients, we play cards, we have coloring books for the patients, and especially if we're watching them closely for one reason or another, we participate in those activities with the patients. And I've seen lots of people reading books and patients reading books, and they have a lot of books available. Apparently they're just for the patients, but the nurses utilize those, allegedly. And so I did bring up, so I did think the book thing was okay. I literally, there were no staples in it. It wasn't like a magazine. There was no metal. It's a paperback book about psychopharmacology. And in between my safety checks, I sit out in the common area. That way, if patients wake up or need something, I can hear them and I'm available. And I read this psychopharmacology book. I'm reading it from front to back so I can understand the author's explanation of how the med works, who it's good for, reading it from front to back. So I have this psychopharmacology book, and they said, no, reading is not acceptable on your shift. And I said, okay, I understand. Genuinely, I did say it like that. I'm not going to argue when someone's trying to fire me. So I'm not going to fight for my position. I can understand how, in general, doing something that benefits only you and not the company, although that's could kind of be contested considering I was bettering myself as a psychiatric provider, how you wouldn't want that as a company. Did I maybe think there might be a warning first? I thought that's probably how they could have handled it, but they didn't. I wasn't going to argue it, so I said, okay, here's my badge. Thank you. Have a good day. So I turned in my keys, I turned in my badge, I turned in my little swiper thingy that opens up doors, and I left. And my favorite LPN that I was working with that night, she likes to chit-chat, so she was still in the parking lot chit-chatting. I didn't notice it until I was pulling out in my car, but I stopped and I rolled my window down, and I said, hey, I got fired! And she was like, no way! No way they fired you. I thought we were joking when we were talking about that. Can't do homework on a shift. Which in actuality, it was the fact that I put it on the internet. Which is so silly of me. It's silly of me. 5 years ago, Jessica would be like, are you kidding me? You put on the internet for everyone to see that you studied or did something you're not supposed to do on a shift, and you're surprised you got fired. Fair. That was on me. That was silliness on my part. But she was outraged for me, and I appreciated that. But it is what it is. So, I didn't know how to feel at first. I did truly feel a little incredulous. I wasn't mad. It was like, yeah, Jess, that was on you. You did that. And those are the consequences. Okay. But I am a really good nurse. I will give that to myself. I do what it takes to learn more, do better, listen to my patients, and ensure safety for staff and patients in all my jobs. Safety is always important. It doesn't have to be a psychiatric setting for safety to be important. So I think that's why I was incredulous. It was just like, if you've ever interacted with healthcare, there are all kinds of kinds everywhere. And I do, in fact, have confidence in my skills and ability to talk to people, which I guess is why I didn't feel sad. It's a little unfortunate because I am going into psych as a provider and working with those medications, working with those patients, talking with those patients. It's nothing but good. I don't think it's necessary to my success in the future, but it's always a great experience. So that is unfortunate. But as I was thinking about it, I did come up with a little list that I may or may not have seen in healthcare that may or may not, in this part I'm going to emphasize, may not get you fired. So here are some things that may not get you fired if you work in healthcare. I've turned it into a list because lists are fun. So the first thing on my list that may not get you fired but might get you fired is studying on the job. I'm going to call this number 11, not part of the 10 countdown list, because obviously it can get you fired, because I am proof of that. So studying and completing a degree on the job in healthcare may or may not get you fired. I guess it depends on who you tell. I may or may not have heard other employees allegedly say things along the lines of, "This nurse's station is where I completed my degree." And I don't know if that's ASN to BSN, because we weren't higher than that, allegedly, whoever that may have been. Or like aid to RN, that degree. Some degree may or may not have been completed at a nurse's station of a healthcare facility. Some healthcare facilities may or may not have churned out actually quite a few nurse practitioners, maybe specialized ones. And they may or may not have used downtime to turn in assignments sometimes. I don't know. But it may or may not get you fired. So that's number 11, because obviously it can. Number 10 that may or may not get you fired is reading books. I may or may not have seen nurses and aides of any sort at places I have worked before reading books, novels, romance, mysteries. I may or may not have heard of people completing books within a shift because there was some downtime. So it's evident that that might not get you fired. So number 10, reading books of any kind. Novels, textbooks, pharmacology guides. You might not get fired for that. And now, because I have less experience in these categories, moving forward, it is evident in things I have seen in healthcare that these things won't get you fired. I might not recommend them, but some careers have shown that these things will not get you fired. So let's see. This will be number 9, vaping at the nurse's station. Truly, I have seen this at many, many places. And we have lots of good long careers, so that one will not get you fired. I don't vape, but there are a lot of healthcare professionals who do. And a lot of them have jobs, so vaping at the nurse's station won't get you fired. This one, we'll call it allegedly. I should have numbered these. Number 8 is going to be completing a diamond painting at your place of employment. Some careers have shown that completing a diamond painting will not get you fired. Allegedly. I haven't tried that one myself. But allegedly there are people who have, and they have jobs. Very fun and creative way to pass time though, apparently, if you have downtime. Number 7, you may not get fired if you watch movies or YouTube videos. We're going to do a little speculation. We're going to say maybe you wouldn't get fired if you watch movies or YouTube videos, even on state-issued laptops. Does that make a difference? Probably not. Let us remember that this is alleged, and this is at any location in healthcare. We're just thinking about things that may or may not get us fired. Purely speculative, purely a conversation, just so we can think about things to look out for in the future. All right, let's move on to number 6. This is another broad sweeping category that could happen anywhere at any facility. You may not get fired if you have headphones in your ear. I don't know what you're listening to. Could be a podcast, could be educational, could be music. But allegedly, if you wear headphones in your ears at the nurse's station, or perhaps even when checking on patients in any setting, you might not get fired. There are careers that show that if you... Sorry about all the sarcasm. That if you wear headphones in your ears, you might not get fired. That's another one that I haven't tried because I do like having my wits about me and being able to hear things and keep an eye on things. All right, I lost track where we were. I think we're on number 5. We're going to call it number 5. Although I don't know that it deserves the number 5 space over some of the other things, but I'm too far in now. So we're going to call it number 5. Allegedly, you might not get fired if you color on the job. Lots of patients like coloring. You're just assisting your patients in a therapeutic activity. So coloring, keeping your eyes on a paper and expressing your creative outlet might not get you fired wherever you might work. I've seen lots of impressive and funny drawings and colorings from some of the nurses I've worked with in the past. We have potential to be an artistic bunch. Number 4, the thing that might not get you fired, allegedly, wherever you may work in general, potentially skipping some responsibilities, but maybe documenting that you did those responsibilities. Some places might call that falsifying documents, but I'm not sure. I'm no lawyer. But some careers have shown that that might not get you fired. But if it does come to the attention of people in some sort of hospital setting somewhere, it might just be a memo. It might be a memo that, hey, don't forget that these are things that you have to do per your job requirements. And if it's documented that they're done, that means that you did them physically. So perhaps if you accidentally falsify a document, you might just get a memo making sure to remind you that you're not supposed to falsify documents. And if you're responsible for patient safety, you should in fact make sure that you are observing the patient's safety in the time frame that you're supposed to observe it. But based on what I've heard in nursing and perhaps seen in some of my workplaces in the past, you might not get fired for that. You might be safe. Number 3 thing that might not get you fired. Again, I'm not so sure this is... I was trying to count down to the worst things. In my opinion, I haven't tried them all. But I was trying to count down to the worst things. Number 3, you might not get fired if you ignore contraband protocols or perhaps bribe patients to be good. I don't have children. Some of you may have children, and it can be very tempting to say, okay, you can have 5 more minutes on the tablet if you behave. And sometimes we take those life lessons that we learn as parents and we think, you know what? Here, you can have some Skittles. You can have some Skittles if that means you'll stay in your room and be a good little patient. And that might not get you fired. But you might want to check the protocols because there might be direct protocols talking about contraband that you can and cannot have in certain hospitals and certain units. So be careful about that. But this is my general statistic. It's not a real statistic. Careers have shown that if you do violate contraband protocols, you might not get fired. You might still be working in your place of employment. Number 2, I have also seen this one far and wide, and it happens because we're humans. But you might not get fired if you fall asleep on the job. You might not get fired if you fall asleep on the job at a nurse's station. You might not get fired if you fall asleep on the job in a common area of sorts with whatever type of patient population you might work with. You might not get fired if you fall asleep on the job while one-to-oneing a patient that may need some extra vigilance for one reason or another. Studies show, careers have shown that you might not get fired if you fall asleep on the job. Hopefully you have a nice nurse working with you who likes to cough really loud sometimes. Or nicely pretend that they like to talk to themselves, like, oh man, what a shift. I can't wait to go home and get some sleep. And then just... But that's the number 2 thing that might not get you fired, sleeping on the job. I'm sure I've nodded at some point, but I do like my own safety enough that if I were to feel fatigue coming over me, I will get up and start walking around because I am in fact being paid to be there and ensure the safety of my patients and coworkers and self. I would like to stay safe. And the number 1 thing that might not get you fired, I'm so sorry for this one. Oh, this one's a bad apple. Assaulting your patients. Maybe we can call it use of excessive force. We'll call it that. Use of excessive force might not get you fired wherever you might work at whatever point in the country, part of the country, type of patient demographic. As a nurse or as an aide or whoever you might be, use of excessive force against patients in your care might not get you fired. In fact, you might be able to do it a couple times, and perhaps the next time you do it, you might just get put off on administrative leave with pay. Allegedly. I don't know. I've never tried it. I do, in fact, like to talk to these patients. It takes a lot of my time, but if I were to come into a situation, in theory, in general, where somebody might be escalating, we've gone through a lot of Nurses go through a lot of education and training on how to de-escalate things and talk to your patients. And sometimes that's all they want, is somebody to talk to them. And if that's not all they want, there are, in fact, things in place that we can do to make sure we safely medicate or restrain them within our rights and within their rights. So I don't know. I would assume we probably wouldn't want to assault or use excessive force on our patients. But if we did have that happen, maybe on accident, it could be, I don't know. Again, I've never been put in that situation, so I don't know what might make us do that. But if we did, we might not get fired for it. We might get paid. We might get some time off. But I can tell you, what you should not do, you should not study psychiatry in a psych facility. You will get fired. Take it from me, I learned that lesson. Reading psychopharmacology books while you're responsible for passing out psychopharmacology medications, it's a big no-no. I think what I might call it is professional development. I am developing professionally. Not acceptable. Not acceptable. Don't develop professionally. But perhaps you won't get fired if you do any of the above 10 to 11 things. Maybe just don't make a video about it. All right, that was supposed to be lighthearted. That was supposed to be silly. That was things I've heard about in the profession. Stories that I'm sure have happened somewhere across the US. There's no shortage of healthcare professional stories. But in all seriousness, if you are a nurse, do in fact try and do your best to keep yourself and your patients safe and follow policies and take the job seriously. I don't think what I was doing was not taking the job seriously. I am mad-eye moody. Constant vigilance is what I live by. So just because I was doing homework and reading textbooks while I was there during downtime does not mean that I was not paying attention to the unit and to where my coworkers were and to where the patients were. And if I heard any peep or creak or door or toilet flush, that my eyes weren't on the camera monitors, making sure that everyone was safe, the hallways were clear, and there was nothing going on that needed my attention. I also never sacrificed any of the actual work to do my homework. I made sure that charting was done and meds were given and patients were taken care of, concerns were addressed before I even thought about submitting an assignment, reading a textbook. And generally, I am such a busy person that my downtime was in fact put towards schoolwork. I was not reading novels or painting my nails, or snoozing a little bit. Nope, if I had extra time, I would put that towards something productive. And if I had education to do, I would make sure my education was caught up. Check my email. There's a list of things I would do before I did homework. So I'm not mad, I'm not bitter. I do think they lost a good nurse. I don't know if I'm patting myself on the back too much for that, but I understand where they're coming from. You don't want to seem taken advantage of, especially as a state job by somebody on the internet for all to see. I did not say names. I did not mention locations, but because I do use my name and I do work for specific companies, they can of course put it together and not accept somebody using company time unwisely. So I get where they're coming from, and it is just a step in my path, something to look back on and probably laugh about eventually. I don't anticipate it harming my future prospects, because in the grand scheme of things, I did all of my work. I cared for all of my patients. I just studied a little too hard. I took that professional development a little too far. And eventually, when I won't have to have assignments and deadlines, I won't have to do that. But I need to use my time wisely, and that was a wise decision in my eyes at the time. So now I guess I still have my medical job, my ICU job. It kicks my butt way harder than the other job did, but it pays a lot more. So if I can find a nice balance between picking up some hours at that medical job and then using the off days instead of picking up at the state job to just study and do homework at home, I guess that's what life's going to look like until I can test. And providing that I get my clinical hours completed, that test is coming up sooner rather than later. So we're still chugging forward. And I hope you thought the video was funny. I hope you maybe learned something. I don't know. I think it's silly that healthcare organizations are ignoring the use of the internet I think that in general, anything that's like, oh, my employee is on the internet in one form or another tends to be more of a red flag than a green flag. And that is something that we just have to build on because it's not a problem. Transparency is a good thing. But in other news, I feel way better than I was feeling. I was sick for like 3 weeks. So luckily I was feeling good when I got that news. I could breathe out of my nose and I wasn't coughing. And now I can't wait to embarrass myself in front of all my family and let them know that a YouTube video got me fired. They think I'm responsible. And now I will never live this down. Oh man. That's probably the worst part. That's the worst part, is that I have to tell my family, who love to mess with each other, that my teeny tiny YouTube channel got me fired. All right. Well, I hope you have a great week. I hope you have a very good week and you make sure to not get fired. I don't know if you need to utilize my tips. I don't know if you need to just interpret some things. Try not to get fired. But if you do, just make sure you are doing the right thing. You've got nothing on your conscience to worry about. And I'll see you in the next video because I do have more updates. I've got more stuff to talk about. So hopefully I can keep things rolling. So it is Saturday. I hope you have a great weekend. Bye.